I'm Brian Ward, partner with Dana Point Harbor Partners and president and partner with Burnham Ward Properties, who is one of three partners involved in the revitalization of Dana Point Harbor, along with Bellwether Financial and R.D. Olson Development. All of the partners in the partnership in Dana Point Harbor Partners are tackling individual pieces to the harbor, but doing it in collaboration with one another and ownership with one another. So it gives us kind of a unique opportunity to do what we do really well. Our responsibility is to recreate and revitalize the retail experience at Dana Point Harbor, and a lot of the landside experience around Dana Point Harbor. R.D. Olson is handling the hotel and imagining the hospitality part of what we're doing there, and obviously Bellwether is doing all the waterside development. We are making a strong effort, concerted effort, to try to retain as much of the memory and the culture, sort of things that people recognize Dana Point Harbor for. And one of the hallmarks of Dana Point Harbor is really the Ocean Institute, and at the Ocean Institute was the Pilgrim Tall Ship. Dana Point Harbor is not just a gathering place for the community, but it's also a place of education. We are the dolphin and whale watching capital of the world, so people come down to do a lot more than just shop. So when we have the opportunity to do something like this, which is recycle and preserve history, things that remind people of Dana Point Harbor, and because the harbor was built and developed back in the late 60s, early 70s. There's a lot of generations that have come through the harbor. So a lot of my friends, and even myself included, to Dana Point Harbor as a young kid. The unique thing that we had to do here is we always had envisioned a flagpole mast really at the entrance of the project. And we had a unique opportunity because of the tragedy of the Pilgrim sinking. We had all these incredible component parts that were really just sitting in a salvage yard, waiting to be disposed of. So we decided to go in and salvage a lot of that original fabric where we could and rebuild a mast with the Pilgrim materials. And I think that doing that wasn't easy to do, but it was a way that we can kind of honor and preserve the history of what touched so many people over the years. There are plenty of places you can go to purchase a flagpole mast, and even a wooden flagpole mast. But we needed to rebuild this because we had always envisioned using some of the component pieces with the oversight of a structural engineer to make sure that we're building it in such a way that it's structurally sound and it's done in a safe and responsible way. So we can add the salvage pieces on safely and in a structurally sound manner. So what we were able to do here with the mast is we did have to recreate the main mast base, because we needed to create a very deep footing on the property to make it safe. And also we had to kind of go in and restore all the pieces, make sure they were inspected to be structurally sound before they were refastened and refinished and applied to the actual mast itself. What was really special is that we were able to not just salvage the wooden portions of the mast, but a lot of the steel collars and all the fasteners and a lot of the rigging that you're going to see on the final flagpole mast. When we went about this, we had to, number one, get a structural engineer involved to design the footing and the way that the flagpole mast was going to be embedded. But also, we wanted to recreate things in a proportional and accurate manner. So we enlisted a shipwright that could kind of oversee the refinishing and resizing of the pieces so they were proportionate to an actual flagpole mast. And that meant some of the pieces had to be cut and adjusted a little bit. Everything had to be refinished because it was in pretty bad condition, just sitting in a yard for quite some time. We brought in Andrew DeSera with Shear Construction, who's sort of a specialty contractor that oversaw the actual rebuilding of, assembly of, and refinishing of all the component pieces. And then Michael Rios, which is a shipwright, and he came in and actually oversaw how everything was going to be assembled, what the size and the proportions had to be cut to for it to be historically accurate. Finished product is just a slightly scaled down version of what would have been on the Pilgrim. A little about sort of the integration of art and memorabilia into the project as a whole. Obviously, the flagpole mast allows us to make a very big statement And so we chose the entrance of the harbor itself as the final residing place for the flagpole mast. There will be a plaque commemorating and explaining the process and the fact that what people are seeing is original fabric from the Pilgrim, and a little bit of reminder history on the Pilgrim for those that haven't been lucky enough to experience it directly. It also is a good representation of the way that we're approaching things at the harbor by creating a lot of moments where we can pay homage to the history and the DNA of Dana Point, and specifically the harbor, why it's meant so much to so many people over the years. In the final project, there'll be likely a long art walk that people can go on, and they'll see a lot of these types of found objects from the past and a lot of relevant art and educational exhibits about why Dana Point is so special. The Pilgrim was a very important educational and historical exhibit and experience for children. And the reason is Pilgrim was made famous by Richard Henry Dana in his famous novel 2 Years Before the Mast, which basically detailed a sailor's life on a vessel traveling from Boston all the way up through California back in, I think it was 1831 through 1836 or 7. I think the book was actually published in 1840. Pilgrim was an exact replica of the ship that Richard Henry Dana sailed on. It gave children the opportunity, many of which never really had a chance to be on the water, let alone understand sailing, how things were back then and why it was relevant and what his experiences and quite frankly what the history is and the reason behind their city being named Dana Point. The intent behind making these kinds of moves and going the extra step to do them is to really preserve this idea of preservation and preserving the history and the DNA of Dana Point and Dana Point Harbor specifically. It's a place that means a lot to the community. It's a place that meant to so many people over the years. And it's also a way, I think, as developers that we can sort of honor the past. So we can recreate what needs to be recreated, but do it in a way that's sympathetic to what has been. We're honored to be able to do this. We're honored to be able to, continue to remind people about why Dana Point is an intergenerational opportunity. And as much as it means to the kids that are coming through, it meant a lot to the parents of those kids and even the grandparents of those kids, and will hopefully mean a lot to generations to come.
I'm Andrew DeSura. I'm the owner of Shear Construction. Brian asked me if I'd make him a flagpole out of the pieces from the Pilgrim. So we took a look at what pieces were available, and we put together a couple of ideas. And then we had to get the approval and design of the structural engineer, and he worked on it, and then we revised it, and he worked on it some more. So we came up with a plan. It was a couple of weeks going back and forth between Brian's vision and the structural engineer's practical requirements, and we just take direction from all of those people. Well, we had the design parameters as far as the thicknesses of each piece. We had the structural limitations of what pieces were available, and just tried to splice it all together to make what pieces would work. We started with a really big timber to make the main part of the mast, and they shaped it from a square piece of wood into a really long pole. They did all that work by hand to get it to this size and the shape that we needed it. From there, we had particular diameters that we had to meet structurally. Then we went to the steel fabrication based on what wood pieces we had and what shapes they were. And then we fabricated all of the structural steel. Then we brought it back to the shop before we powder coated the material. We trial fit everything. Once everything fit, we went and took it and got it sandblasted and then metallized and then powder coated. And then we had to refit everything During that process, when we were fabricating the metal, the finishers were here putting on coat after coat after coat of lacquer, varnish, I guess. I think they put on 10 coats on each piece of wood, filling in the cracks, making sure everything was ship shape, and then we had to fit it all back together again. The timeline was 8 weeks from start to finish. It will be 35 feet tall from the ground to the top of the mast, and it's about 15 feet wide. It's a unique historic piece. My wife stayed on the Pilgrim in 4th grade with her dad, and so because of that history in Dana Point Harbor, it was interesting to me to be able to work with those pieces and fabricate something that will be here through my kids' life. This is a mast that was from the Pilgrim that sank in Dana Point Harbor. The pieces of the mast were salvaged, and we reconstructed those pieces into a 35-foot flagpole that will be behind the Dana Point Harbor sign. The design process was fairly complicated between Brian Ward's vision of what he wanted it to look like and what the structural requirements were for a flagpole that is this large. Also, being so close to the water, we had to worry about deterioration over time, and we spent a lot of time just making sure it would last for a long time. This is a part of the Pilgrim. All of the fittings we salvaged, we restored by powder coating, metallizing, and part of the challenge of this was making all of the historic pieces fit the structural requirements. This was a replica of the wooden parts. We needed added strength because of the wind load and to make sure that it lasted. So all of this was put together per the structural engineer's guidelines. We fit all these historic pieces into something that would stand the test of time. One of the pieces that we couldn't salvage from the Pilgrim is this bottom mast piece that was milled out of a 14 by 14 Doug fir post. Once we had it shaped, we fit it into our base, which is super heavy. This base plate is 1.25 inches thick. It will sit on the caisson that this in-bed will be embedded into, and the caisson is 3 feet in diameter and goes down 8 feet. So it's significant and it's heavy, and it was difficult to work with. When we deconstructed everything, we were able to polish it, put it back together after coating it. All of our hardware, which not a lot of it's in yet, is stainless steel, so that all of our bolts and our fittings will be corrosion resistant as long as possible.
Okay, so yeah, what we're looking here is it's a classic gaff style rig that you would find on old ships, sailing ships, fishing ships, and that's going to be your gaff right here, which is a piece that we took from the Pilgrim, as well as your top mast right here has also been salvaged from the Pilgrim, and also the crossbar right here where the flags are going to be run from was also taken from the Pilgrim.
So you're going to have additional strands coming down to that?
We're going to have 3 flags running from the crossbar on each side with nautical flags that are going to be spelling something that's going to be later determined.
Sure.
We're also going to have an American flag running from the top mast, and then off the gaff, I believe we'll have a California state flag and possibly an Orange County flag.
We're only going to have the Orange County flag if they approve the footing.
No, don't say that.
Oh.
Cancel that.
I don't know how much I'm supposed to reveal or not.
Well, I wouldn't even say that, but you know,
I would just say California and
we'll just say
American
flag.
so
You
far.
know, so yeah, you know, you could say that.
Yeah.
California and county flag, absolutely.
And then, yeah, all those are going to tie in down here at the base. We have belay pins. All the halyards can be tied from there, and they can be lowered and raised for any other purposes.
And then the footing, Andrew, that was designed.
So Robert designed the footing. It's about 8 feet deep. It sticks out of the ground 2 feet, and then it's encased in a deck that will allow us to put the newel posts and the railing that runs around so that all the cables can tie into it.
Okay. So basically, the yards, the top mast, and the rigging, all salvaged from the Pilgrim,
Yeah, and all the connection pieces.
and all the connection pieces, the steel collars and everything that's you know, either here on the gaff.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brian Ward, partner with Dana Point Harbor Partners and partner with Burnham Ward Properties. We are here today to kind of celebrate a milestone in really creating a new flagpole mast. But what's most special about the mast is that it's been put together from salvaged parts from the Pilgrim, which was a tall ship that resided at the harbor since 1981, I believe, and was an incredible educational opportunity for kids to come down, learn about history, tall ships, and actually embark on day sail trips and overnight educational opportunities at Dana Point Harbor. So this is kind of an opportunity for us to pay homage to something that's been really valuable to the community. We loved the idea of building a flagpole mast, but what's even more special about it is we were able to do it with salvaged parts from a vessel that was really special to the community.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I own Shear Construction. We were contracted with Brian to put this together. It was challenging in a lot of ways to make sure that we could utilize the parts from the Pilgrim and put it together in a structurally sound way that would stay up for many, many years to come.
I'm Michael Rio, owner of Fairwinds Marine. I've had the pleasure of getting to work with Andrew to help design and put together this flagpole. We've been taking care of most of the finish work as far as the varnish and all the paint, and we'll also be handling all the rigging and the flags.